Welcome to another episode of Dog Pound Bear Down with Turban Brothers. I am your host, Benny, with your co host, Yogi. Yogi, how are you feeling? Now we have Sanders 2 games in. What do you think?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where we started with a lot of hope and we're quickly in a spot where now we just want to get through the season that remains with Sanders. I don't think any of us had playoff hopes after a certain point in the year, even though, technically we're still in the hunt. Thought Sanders played well overall. I didn't see him make any glaring mistakes. There were a couple of balls that I'm sure he would like back. And I don't include that Jerry Judy one in that set. So I think it's the first time the Browns offense has looked confident this year. We've had flashes of it, but no consistency at all until Sanders stepped in. He did take a sack in this game against the 49ers that was similar to the really bad sacks. Other than that, I thought Sanders played really well for the second straight game. I don't think he's shown anything that should make anyone think of him as elite, but he's obviously a competent NFL quarterback, but he's already way ahead of what people were saying about him. And it's even more confounding now that he dropped as far as he did, because you watch some of these other quarterbacks that have played this year and you have to question how that's possible. What was it on Sanders that turned people against him so much that somebody that we clearly have seen for 2 weeks straight now is competent didn't get normally a fifth rounder isn't getting a shot? Like may not even make the roster cut. So I think he's proven everything he can from his perspective with a really bad wide receiving group led by, Steve Smith said it best, like just another guy. That's who Jerry
Yeah.
Judy is. That's the best receiver we have, and he's just another guy. So yeah, I was really happy with Sanders. I have issues with pretty much everything else about the Browns, but not with Sanders. What did you think? Did you feel good about his performance for game 2, given everything else we've seen of him?
Actually, let me set the record straight. Going into the draft, I wasn't a big fan of him. I knew, he's hyped, and a lot of was to do with Hunter. And we have said that in the previous podcast as well. So going into the season, going into the draft, I was on a schedule train. But eventually, when we draft, he fell like to the 5th round, and we drafted him. I was kind of excited. I was like, all right, this kind of humbles him, whatever he had issues in the past. And now we draft him like, we can sit him out for a year, let him grow, let him learn the quarterback position. And eventually he did get his start. He was thrusted into the action against Baltimore game where, Gabriel being knocked out at the half, he was thrown in. And he showed the glimpse that he wasn't ready. Like same thing you mentioned in the past, and we did cover this in our previous podcast, like where he was running backwards mostly, right? Trying to make a special play and got sacked multiple times. So I wasn't comfortable at that point, but again, we all knew he didn't get reps. We all knew he was thirsted into the scene, into the game, and he wasn't ready yet. But we were like, all right, let's see how he does against the next game against Vegas, right? So that game, he showed a lot of promise. He eliminated his mistakes, taking sacks. So there was progression right off the bat, which I haven't seen with Dylan Gabriel. And I don't want to compare because they're in the same draft class. And one also got a lot of reps and was hyped as, supercomputer kind of from the media, Cleveland media, which we'll discuss later. But yes, the steps, the progressions he made from game to game, from the Baltimore game to Vegas game was exponential, right? He got rid of the ball. He had one terrible pick. I don't know what he was seeing, but that's a rookie mistake. You would do that, as a rookie, you'll make those mistakes. But he made those progressions where he avoided sacks and he got the ball out real quick, took deep shots, and got, good plays, chunk plays, right? So that's something I wanted to look at how he will progress, how he will scan his first, second, third read. And he pretty much came out with flying colors and won us the game as well. Again, defense did most of the work. He did just enough to be efficient, where his passer's rating was 87.3, which was relatively good for a rookie to start his first game. And then the second game happened. Second game, I knew going into we weren't going to throw the ball as much because those windy conditions. We have a good running back. Their defense is not as great. Why not run the ball? And And that's what we did initially. But what you mentioned, and I've, texted back and forth between our chats, that there were guardrails with him. They didn't let him play the quarterback position as it should be. They were doing dinks and dunks. He did take a few shots, and I think he missed Jerry Judy once. Whether he missed it or it was lack of effort is debatable. Again, the more film you see, the more justification you get out of it. But he took deep shots, and one of the Harrison, the tight end, um, Fanning, deep ball he threw at, it was right on the spot for a touchdown, right? So I saw more progressions, but again, in the second half, what kind of stopped his growth was our special teams, offense becoming stagnant and being one dimensional again, and receivers not being able to, get open because there was a lot of time. There was ample time which we've seen him have while he's trying to look for receivers. So the growth was there in the first game. The second game, it started off good, but I think there were so many other factors as a rookie quarterback he had to overcome that it kind of got stagnant at second half. Like a whole third quarter, he barely got ball once. That's not fair for a quarterback. And then you're playing from behind, trying to do the come from behind thing. With this team, it's even harder than you can ever possibly imagine. Just because anemic offense, the inefficient offense, they don't have the skill level on offense to, make the leap or come from behind or take the game on head on. So that's what I saw. I saw a lot of progression, a lot of good stuff. What he did on the field. Even in the last game, he was 6 of 25 for 149 yards. Some yard came in the garbage time, but again, his rating was 93. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. Like, besides their special team, they were fumbling left and right and couldn't even catch a punt. But and again, a lot of stuff will go back when you look at the video on his throw to Jerry Judy, which was another episode on the sideline, which we can address later. But even if you look at it, if this was first game or second game of the season, he will hit that play in the eighth game because he will be seasoned by then. And he will have broader reps. He will know, he will start trusting his receivers. But I think that's where he was pulling the trigger too early sometimes, whether maybe the issue, not trusting himself. But overall, I saw the progression in him. He did, grow from his Baltimore game a lot. And this time he had more challenges, a good team, as well as the weather he had to go against. And not making excuses for him, but the facts are facts. So I was really impressed. I want him to grow, but I want to see him with more weapons going forward. That's what I came about from this game. It was a good showing, not the greatest showing I would want to see from quarterback, but again, he's developing quarterback. He's not a number one pick, right? Should have been number two, as you mentioned earlier. There are a lot of other quarterbacks which got drafted ahead of him, and he's playing way better than them. Even Ward, he's playing way better than him. But again, he's developing, and next game will be, another step in the right direction as he faces his arch rival Ward from Tennessee. So that'll be another showing he has to put up.
Yeah, and I definitely want to come back to the reasons why I saw Sanders the way that I did in the second game against San Francisco, because there are other factors that were not in his hands that ultimately completely turned the game. But before we go to that angle, I do want to come back to something you said, which is our next topic. Ultimately, special teams really let us down again.
Mhm.
You and I have talked about accountability. We've talked about the lack of accountability in particular. What did you think about the special teams, repeated issues? What did you think about like how that impacted this game in particular? And then Bubba Ventrone, like just overall.
Yeah. I was really high on Bubba Ventrone, but when we first got him, and I thought, he's going to be a step up from Prefer, right? But again, this last 2 years has been terrible, like terrible. And I bet if not two, at least one game we could easily pin on our special teams. It could be this one, or there could be the Cincinnati game, or it could be also Minnesota game. But you can pick handful games where we're giving big punt returns. We're not catching the ball. It's just like mental mistakes they're making one after another. And again, it's not a talent issue, it's mental mistakes. Those are usually cleaned up by the coaching. That's what coachings are supposed to do is make sure you don't commit mistakes over and over again. You play clean form of football. If there's a lack of talent, I completely understand that. But completely missing blocks, having wide lanes open for your punt returner to go through, that's totally unacceptable acceptable, right? You can't have those mistakes like catching the ball at 5 yard line and stepping out. You're handicapping your team from, first of all, our offense is not great. And second of all, you're putting them in a position now, you're handicapping them from like, from going from a decent field position to a field position where they have to, go 95 yards down the field. So that is an issue which has been hindering us for past few years. And I think we have called for, new special team coaches, but I think this is time, right? I've seen enough of Baba Ventron. There has been no progress. It's every game in and out. We may have one or two good games, but we go back to square one, letting big punts go by, make big mistakes, and handicap our offense as well as defense because you're putting them in a position now they have to they have short field and they have to go over and beyond because you just played 3 and out defense. Now they have to stop them again when you fumble. So we are putting our team in a difficult position right now. I think out of three facets of football, only one is showing up to the game day is defense. Special teams and offense is non-existent. So it's going to be hard for us to win that way. What are your thoughts on Baba Mantrone and our special teams?
Yeah, it's multivariable with any level of success in the NFL. And everybody talks about offense, defense, special teams, and that's absolutely the truth. You have to have all three phases going. But it's also the decision making and the momentum swings in within all of that, that allow teams to be successful or not successful. I think of the fact that, like we were just talking about Shador and we were talking about things that impacted him. Special teams this game again was atrocious. And this year has been at least the first time in like history for me as a Browns fan where it's not just kickers missing field goals. We've had that. It's not punters missing a punt here or there. We've had a little bit of that this year too, even though we've consistently had some of the best punters in the past few years, but we have lapses in returning, and this is a franchise, by the way, that had Eric Metcalf, Josh Cribbs. We've had some dynamic returners, and we're giving up touchdowns, right? And you think about it, all of those things not only demoralize a team because it's a single play. It really is. A field goal, single play. A punt, single play. A return, or coverage like you're talking about, blocking. We're talking about one play where people are making a mistake, and it's turning the tide of the whole game. Bubba should have been fired before. Like, he really should have. If they gave him a mulligan for last year, let's just say, then they should have had a mile marker for this year that said game 3, mile 42, game 4, mile 58, whatever it was. If he hasn't figured it out, he's gone. Oh, I will jump to the other aspect that I alluded to earlier, which is what else is really impacting this team, and then I'll absolutely talk again about Bubba. Um, if you remember the play we fumbled the ball on with Harold Fannin, where he took the first snap he's ever taken
Yes.
at all in this play, and he takes it during a live game. We were on the 24 to start that drive. Stefanski and Reese start off with an 8-yard pass, right? Like, what a great start. We have 1-yard run, 0-yard run. So it becomes 4th and 1 at the 33. At Cleveland's 33, the score is 10-8, right?
Yep.
So the reason I'm bringing this up in the same vein as Bubba, and I'm referring back to Shador, is because think about it. In spite of what had already happened above this, at this point, we're in the third quarter. So some of the things you and I have talked about have already happened. We're right there. Who this is a Paul DePodesta move. Like, who says, hey, you know what? I got 1 yard on second. I no yards on third. Let me go for it in a tight game. against a really good team. They may be lacking on defense, but they're a good team. They're
Mhm.
9-4 for a reason.
Yeah.
Who decides to go for it? Why did Stefanski make
Mind-boggling.
that decision?
Mind-boggling.
It's your own territory. Your defense is awesome. Your defense has given up to this point 10 points. Like we would have entered based on the pace of the game and the momentum of the game, if we just punt here and it's a reasonable punt. I'm not saying he, coffin corners them or anything crazy. A reasonable punt. I'm pretty sure we hit the fourth quarter with the same score.
Yeah. No,
But
guaranteed.
instead, Stefanski ruins Sanders because guess who's not on the field for this play too? So ruins the drive, fumbles the ball in on a play he should not have done anyways, and then gives them the ball only to have them score.
Yeah.
And they ran the clock here,
Yeah.
right? So they ran off 5 minutes and 36 seconds. And the reason I call that out specifically with these two conversations is because I think Bubba should have been let go before. Should be let go now. But Bubba's not the real problem. And when we talked about Shador earlier, when I think about the fact that they didn't win this game, it turned out to be 26-8. It was 10-8
Mhm.
halfway through the third quarter. But Stefanski decides, and I can't tell you what kind of shorted analytics they're using for this, but it does not make sense. With that defense and your hapless offense, why did you go for it on that fourth down instead of punting it? And that not only caused more issues with us, because then what happens? San Francisco goes and scores, demoralizes the defense. We don't ultimately do anything on offense, right? And it starts to cascade on us. And we have more issues on offense, more issues on special teams. So I think, just to round it out, the answer still is I'm with you 100% on everything you said about Bubba, but this should have been the final nail in the coffin for Kevin Stefanski, too, because that's his decision. And his decision took us from 10-8 to 26-8 in one quarter.
You're right. It is deeply rooted because again, you mentioned earlier accountability. The coach doesn't have any accountability to the team. Many people go like, "Yeah, go for it." Right? In the media, they have mentioned it. Even like if I was playing Madden, I'll go like, "Yeah, go for it." So what? But you are still in the thick of things. You have a playoff defense. You're 3-8 at that point. You are making case for playoff run. I know it's kind of far fetched right now. At that moment in time, it was realistic because you're 2 games out. The division leader are 6-6. The second team is 6-6. Bengals are 4-8, and you're 3-8. So it's not like you don't have anything to play for. Just take a gamble. You just got to play smart. And that's what has been lacking is accountability from this coaching staff, whether it's offense or special teams. The only part of the team which is fully accountable, I feels like, is the defense. But offense and special teams, there is no accountability at all. And you're right. Ventrone is secondary. The head coach at this point is the main point of emphasis, main point of focus is you can make blunders. And we have seen this if you play callings during Baker, during Deshaun, all this time, even when Chubb was there. 3rd and 1, he would not be on the field. 4th and 1, he would not be on the field. This is insane. Like, what are you doing? Are you trying to play analytical ball or are you trying to just, you know, outsmart the other team? Because you're not outsmarting them, you're outsmarting yourself. You're fumbling the ball by trying tight end run up the middle. That's insane. You're switching linemen at the last second. It's confusion. It's chaos. It reminds me of Hugh Jackson years. It's total confusion. You don't know what you're doing. The accountability part, and we saw it last year. I think players love him because they feel he's going to protect them.
Yes.
And there is no accountability. You can do whatever. Your coach is going to protect you, and you can get away with anything. And to most extent, they have. And that's what I feel bad about is like, okay, we know this coaching staff is not going anywhere. Why don't we give somebody else a shot? And to your point, which is going to be our next topic, Jim Schwartz, he's right here. What would you say if we tomorrow fired Stefanski and gave Jim Schwartz a shot. What do you think his strong suits are? What do you think about him as a coach if we gave him a shot?
I would absolutely celebrate it. I want to make sure I say that outright. Just like I would have celebrated when you and I were talking last year about getting rid of Barry and Stefanski and giving Vrabel a shot, and then just figuring it out from there. I think we now see Vrabel somewhere else, extremely successful in his very first year. And I think we'll see the same thing with Schwartz because this wouldn't be Schwartz's first time as a head coach either. And really briefly, though, on the Stefanski topic, something that I noticed happen in the last 2 weeks that came out, and then the subsequent fallout that have not seen as a result of this last game against the 49ers made me think of something, and that is we've all met those guys that only bully nice guys. And the reason I'm bringing that up, the Cleveland media often protects Stefanski, and I know that's
Mhm.
a later topic too, but I want to call this out. I want to say it out loud. Kevin Stefanski seems like that kind of bully. And the reason I say that, how does Wyatt Teller have to share reps with some no name lineman? But Jerry Judy has seen an uptick in targets. How does that happen? And here's what I'm getting at. That's the wrong personality for a head coach. We all know those guys. We all dislike those guys severely. And we know that they only go after the nice guys because they can get away with it. I don't even mind in football if you're a bully that bullies everyone. If you're like, hey, Miles, I'm going to bully you as a head coach the same way I bully Judy and the same way I bully Sanders and the same way I bully Wyatt and Batonio, who's ready to retire, then I don't have an issue because your team knows what to look for. Schwartz would never do that. That's not in his DNA. He doesn't even bullshit in his interviews. So Stefanski basically goes into interviews and is allowed to say nothing. He's allowed to completely ignore the question. And if you listen to Schwartz's interviews, he does a great job of being respectful, right? So when they sometimes, they'll set up questions in a way where it would be easy to make like a bulletin board remark about another offense or another OC or head coach. Schwartz never does that, but he also doesn't hide. He talks out loud about what they intend to do. He talks about the fact that we're going to be physical. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to continue to blitz. We know who we are. It's the opposite of Stefanski. Stefanski's trying to make an example of someone that was a Pro Bowler, offensive lineman who has never been out in the media. This is not Richie Incognito, known as a dirty player kind of dude. Nothing. Like he has nothing. He goes after him. Schwartz would never do it. Schwartz would instead do what he's done with the defense to the rest of the team, which is say, hey, I'll protect you, but not in the way Stefanski did, where even if you suck, you still get to play. They asked about Mike Hall. Obviously, with Malik getting hurt, who, by the way, I thought had played out of his mind this year. Like everybody's giving Mason credit, and Mason is playing better now too, thankfully. But Malik showed him. Like he was the one holding it down in the middle for us,
Yeah.
playing great. He gets hurt. They asked about Mike Hall. The reason Stefanski couldn't just outright say, yeah, Mike Hall is going to step in and get more reps is because I am confident Schwartz said, hold him. He's got to earn his reps. I got multiple DTs. I'm going to use whoever deserves it. They're going to go into practice this week and earn it. That was Mike Hall, obviously the young, faster, more big play, guy out of the rest of the guy, like Shelby and the rest of the guys that are older. Yeah, of course. But Shelby's played really well too. So Schwartz is everything Stefanski's not. I would rather fail through change than fail by doing the same thing. What do you think about Schwartz? I mean, you were actually, between the two of us, you were the first one to say, I want them to give Schwartz the head coaching job.
Yes. I would love to have Schwartz coaching opportunity against after Detroit Lions. Again, he was young, he was inexperienced. Now he's seasoned. Like when you hear his press conferences, he kind of reminds me of Kenny Atkinson. He kind of like philosophically teach you certain aspects of the game, explain you, and give a proper answer. Unlike Stefanski is like ignoring the question and I got to be better. Team has to be better. It's like nothing to do with the question, nothing to do with anything the media is asking, and he just goes off different tangent. But Schwartz, as you said, he sits there, explains it, what his reasoning is. He's not scared to call his players out either. He is as honest as you can have as a coach. And again, he reminds me so much of Kenny Atkinson. Would football coaching demeanor where he will get the most positive out of you. And also, you hit the nail on the head. He would not have standards for any of his players. He would expect same thing from Miles Garrett, from Mike Hall, from Ward, or from Mason as he's expecting from anyone. Because that's what he is. He has been in the league for so long. He has seen up and downs. And now like this is his opportunity for maybe have the best run. And look at our defense. Any team you talk to or any fan you talk to, they're like, yeah, you guys could never figure out your quarterback or you guys could never have a special team, but your defense is legit. And that has come from everywhere in NFL. The media, the fans, I bet it's all the coaching staff agrees as well. So when you look at Jim Schwartz, is he's the only hope we have left among any of our coaches. And the last thing I would want to do is give no name a shot. Again, try to see if we can find a lightning in the bottle, another coach from either college ranks or some hotshot offensive coordinator, because most of these offensive coordinators, if they're hot shot, they don't even call their plays. The only last one I've seen who called his plays was Ben Johnson and was successful. Many times you look at Nagy and other places, Andy Reid was calling the shots. I mean, plays. They're just like being secondary assistant to them. So I don't want that. I don't. And but when you look for seasoned, there are not many seasoned left out there, right? There's no Harbaugh coming out. There's no variable sitting on the bench somewhere, which we already had in our team facility and let go. So the last thing I want to do is let another proven coach who has done wonders on our defense to let go. Because obviously, if he cleaned house, he's going to be gone. And that's the beacon of hope you have is our defense. And you're going to like start over with that. That's not going to work. You are number one defense. Give that guy a shot. Bring a high profile offensive coordinator if you really want one and go like, hey, start cooking. We need you to at least have not the bottom three offenses, at least middle of the pack, 15th. Not too much of an ask. And again, if I was a owner or a GM, I don't know, Barry will stay or not. Why not this year? Again, jumping into a different topic, give Schwartz his last 5 games, let Sanders play. And if he shows you next year, draft offensive line and wide receivers first few rounds. And if they fail next year, then you get a new coach the following year when you're going to let Jim Schwartz go. And find a coach who can pick his own quarterback, whether it's Arch Manning or somebody else. I don't know. But that will be a proper step following because right now I don't see a coach sitting in anywhere in the ranks which can just come up and do what Ben Johnson did or Mike Vrabel did, like flip a script on a team which is at the bottom of the league to go to top of the league. Both Bears and Patriots are example. It could be done. It's harder for us to do, but it could be done. Even we did it with Stefanski in his first year. So it is possible, but I would rather take the chances of the horses we have in house, who we know of, who we have, who are well respected in NFL, who have experience, are seasoned, as well have a really, really good knowledge and have done wonders in their team. Because if defense gives him respect, I'm sure whole team will fall in line for him because they understand first what he does, what he stands for, and how his unit is performing. So again, I got too into all the other little things, but my answer would be yes. Don't let it happen again. What happened last year, we let Variable go. Don't commit the same mistake twice. Don't be stupid enough to do that. So that's what my feelings are with Schwartz. I love him as a coach. I love his aggressiveness. Sometimes at the end of the game, he doesn't close. But again, it happens to every best coaches, like whether it's offense or defense. But his demeanor, his press conference, the way he articulates himself, explains his particular plays, breaks down the game, not only for media members, for fans, it's respectable. It's appreciated. So I think we should give him a chance. I think it's about time. This 4-game runway would be huge for him because that gives you an insight of how he will perform next year and give him another 1 year. You're not going to go anywhere anyways because if you start, I mean, you keep hitting your head against the wall over and over again, you expecting different results, you're going to be, that's the definition of insanity. I don't think so. We have done it twice already. Third year is not going to help us. I'm pretty confident in that. So why not just mix it up a little bit? Not let Jim Schwartz go, or, for a new coach, or even for our existing coach. So I would love to have him as a coach, to be honest.
Yeah, it's, to round that out, if we don't give him the opportunity as a head coach, it should only be because he himself says, done it before. It's not really something I'm looking for. And then they should immediately say, we want to keep you here. So we're going to involve you in our head coaching search. So I mean, I hope he does want to be a head coach, because two things would happen. One, any player that's been half-assing, like a Jerry Jeudy potentially, they're going to want out immediately,
Hmm.
because they're going to realize my time's up. I
Hmm.
can't coast anymore. I can't just collect
Hmm.
my paycheck.
Yep.
And then the other part of it is anyone that might like defect because they're like, oh, we're starting over, they won't have that sensation of starting over. They'll stay. Right. And I'm not worried about Miles, but I do think about a lot of other players that we have. Like Denzel's one of those guys, right? Where like I wouldn't blame him for saying, like, hey, cornerbacks are not supposed to play this long anyways. And this is signaling to me, like, if we bring some no name, like you talked about, head coach in, this signals to guys like that, we're starting over again.
Hmm.
And so I think on that front as well, like it would clean house a little bit organically, and it would keep the guys we want to keep and not scare them off that, like, hey, we're going through a huge new rebuild. Because as much as I didn't like Barry not moving any people necessarily for good picks, like Njoku and some of the other players that we now have that are pretty big contracts, but don't produce at that level, let's just be honest. When we didn't move those guys, the one thing I did think about was this means they're not giving up, and the players are going to get the message that we may be bad right now, but we're not giving up. We're going to keep building around this same team. So the only thing I think that would throw them off is bringing some new no-name guy in and then trying to restart. So on the next topic, I'm going to tee this up a little different than we normally. I'm going to show two quick clips, and you'll recognize both of them right away. And I'm teeing this up in this way because the question that I'm ultimately going to pose to you, like I'll share my context, and then I want to know, like, is it just me seeing it this way about Cleveland media, or like, do you see some of these same things? So this first clip, this is a recent notorious one where one of the Cleveland media members asks Shador a question. So that's that first one. And I'm going to pause the presenting for a second. Two things stood out to me. One, they posed a question to him they would not pose to Kevin Stefanski. Two, they have consistently, not right in your face, but a behind the scenes kind of way, made it seem like Shador was a part of the problem
Hmm.
in the background, right? A part of the reason he wasn't getting reps, a part of the reason he wasn't with the ones, a part of the reason he wasn't running scout, all of those things with Shador. They did that. They asked that question and he responded that way. Would they ask Stefanski that question? That's a part of it. The other part of it is the way he responded. We never heard from the Cleveland media loudly. They're like, man, that's the kind of quarterback we always wanted. When we got upset with Baker, it wasn't because Baker didn't care about Cleveland. It wasn't because Baker didn't play through injury or look and sound just like a Cleveland guy, quite honestly. The times I think fans got frustrated with Baker when it really wasn't about football. But you heard his response. And here's the other one. And I go back to this one, and I am going to admit my bias here because I've been against this narrative that the Browns media has had from the very, very beginning, because I have felt people like Chubb, Garrett, Ward, prior to that. I mean, I'll even include Batonio, Teller, but prior to that, Joe Thomas, they deserved better than the amount of losses that they got. But this is the other one. This one became so notorious that it went on to Pat McAfee, and I'll just play it here for a second. Do you see how they also would never talk about Stefanski this way?
Hmm.
So he just talked about Garrett's money at the end there, right? Which the debate ultimately was, Miles said, I want to win a Super Bowl, so that's where I want to go. That's why I asked for a trade. Then he signs the biggest contract at the time, which within weeks, by the way, gets outmaxed by two other players, which he knew would happen. It's not like their agents don't know that's going to happen. But at the end of that, he turns it into a money thing about collecting paychecks. What about Stefanski collecting paychecks this whole time, having two decent seasons, but the longest tenured coach we've had? Why is it? So two things on this one. They constantly have had the narrative that Miles is selfish, that Miles is somehow only out for himself, not a team player. Who has made more big plays for the Browns this year than Miles? I would love for someone to name a person.
Yeah.
And secondly, we've never seen Miles quit. So here's what I'm positioning. Cleveland media is delusional, represents the worst of Browns fans, and has zero appreciation for the talent that comes into Cleveland.
Mhm.
And simultaneously, when they have a head coach, they protect that head coach.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, having seen that, having heard my version, my very biased version of it, do you see what I see, which is Stefanski can go through an entire press conference without answering a single question.
Mhm.
Nobody raises their voice. Nobody uses a rude tone. Nobody poses a question. Do you see how what I see? And if I'm wrong, I want to be called out. That they like ultimately Cleveland media, they spin those bad stories and they go after those certain people. And I'm going to go back to my bully analogy. They bully the guys they know they can, right? They
Yeah.
don't go after Haslam like that. They don't go after Stefanski like that. Shoot, they don't even go after Barry like that necessarily. At least they ask Barry some tough questions, but not in that tone, not with that rhetoric that he just had for Miles or the tone that the reporter had for Shador. What do you think? Am I just hearing it or is it real?
No, you're 100% right. I do want to say, I think Cleveland media likes spicy stories, soap operas, because they are so far from winning, they have nothing else to talk about. So, coach, which is 43 and 54, who doesn't answers and acts like Belichick's, like, you're not the second coming of Belichick. Belichick is entitled to those short answers because he wins. He doesn't care about anything but winning. But if you're not winning, you need explanation. You need to give answers to the media and tell them what is going on. You can't say, I got to be better or I'm not going to answer that. No, you need a descriptive answer. So I think what has happened is for Cleveland media, they have gone from winning. They don't know they're going to win again. The team is not doing well. So they're just cooking them some stories, something to keep fans, buying their bits, buying their bites, keep them interested because winning is secondary to them. It's all about like TikTok story. Hey, let's spice it up. Ask an insane question to a rookie quarterback because if he snaps, it's going to be the number one storyline in ESPN. It's going to be number one storyline on Get Up. It's going to be number one storyline anywhere on the social media because that's what they want to sell because they can't sell the content, which is Cleveland Browns. They can't sell the winning. They can't sell, okay, we have a Super Bowl contention window or even a playoff contention window. This is all they got. And I feel sorry for them in a way because they don't know what winning is, what good coaches are, what good quarterbacks are. So in a way, I feel like they're just trying to cook up some storm. And that's why many people, that's like clickbait. I'm going to pose him a question. Maybe he falls for it. If he falls for it, hey, my name is on the silver lining. Like, hey, this guy asked this question and he fell for it. Again, it's nothing to do with Cleveland. It's nothing to do with Cleveland fans. It's just trying to like clickbait, trying to make some quick money because, you're not selling Cleveland Browns wins, obviously. But going back to, yes, it's insane that a coach can get away with lack of answers. It's insane. Like, especially when you have shortcomings at years, you're 43 and 54. You're not 54 and 43. So there's a big difference. You're like 11 game under 500.
And let's talk
So
about that 43-54, right?
yeah,
That's 2020. They were 11-5. So
yeah,
that's Baker.
yeah,
Just to be clear.
yeah.
2023, 11-6. That's that 7-game, Joe Flacco balling out
Magic, yeah.
stretch,
Yep.
right? The rest of the years, 8-9, 7-10, 3-14 last year, and we're currently sitting at 3-9. He being Stefanski never earned ever the right to just that's on me
Yeah.
every question asked of him.
Exactly.
Like
Yep.
he just didn't. Like there's no world in which he did. But the media in Cleveland, to your point, they are definitely mongers of like the spicy story. That's obvious. And people will say, well, you guys are making a podcast. I'll be honest, the reason we make this podcast is because one, we genuinely care about the Browns and we are fans of this team and have been for decades at this point. been through the ups and downs, and we're tired of the bullshit. We also both had the opportunity to leave Cleveland, see the national media and their view of Cleveland. We get to experience a draft outside of Cleveland. So we're like, we don't think of it as we're one pick away from the Super Bowl. We also notice there's a substantial difference in how Cleveland reports and talks about its people. And that's really why we do the podcast, is because after we heard and talked about for years all of these things, we're like, why don't we just give a no bullshit approach to the Browns? Let's
100%.
not give anybody a pass. Let's actually talk about those issues.
Yep.
And that's why we're able to do it. So, I mean, I'll round it out by saying all those seasons, that record, I can't imagine we go into the 2020, six, like the season that starts in 26 and goes into 27 with Kevin Stefanski. Like, we might go with Barry, which I don't want, but I could see it, because at least this draft was a massive success, and it was. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Yep.
But you can't. Like, you cannot go with Stefanski. So I'll pose the final topic that we have, at least. Like, what do you think next steps would be for the Browns?
Next step might come true next game if they lose to Titans. They fire Stefanski, promote Schwartz because they're scared he would lose, so they want to keep him. Unless, yes, you mentioned he completely says, I don't want to be the head coach. So if he wants, he goes, gives a 4-game run, see how he does, gets the next year. I still want him to get a full offseason, get his own offensive coordinator, be with the team, draft offense, get a good hotshot offensive coordinator. And then if it doesn't pan out, 2027, new coach, new quarterback. So you don't waste this year's draft on a quarterback as well, when you want to fire the coach anyways. This is going to be putting cart ahead of before the horse. So it doesn't make sense. That's what I would do. That's what I think they should do. My fear is they'll keep Stefanski, Barry tandem again, repeated one more year, and again, same results. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I like your idea that you talked about a while ago about promoting Schwartz into that head coach spot. As long as he wants it, promote him, get rid of Reese, bring in Kingsbury or somebody that has proven themselves now with these young quarterbacks. And people will ask, well, like, how are you going to do that if they're not going to be the head coach? Well, you make him an assistant head coach and offensive coordinator, right? That's what you do. So bring someone else in. And I'm sorry that, people are probably going to react with the, like, Tommy Reese just got here. He's just started. He's supposed to be a prodigy, blah, blah, blah. The issue is you need some fresh blood on that offense. And now he, unfortunately, is tainted, in my opinion, by the experience he's had here. Bring in somebody, let them clean this up, let them make their own decisions, honestly, and have Schwartz be the head coach, the mature voice in the room, the one sort of guiding that person, allowing them to understand how do we take it forward. Now, if he keeps Reese, that's fine too. I just think it'll be tainted because Reese can't pivot the very next week and say, okay, Watson, you've cleared practice and we lost to the Titans. You're back in at starting quarterback. These are the changes I'm making in the offensive line. Judy, you're on the bench. You're going to be my third. And I'm going to start, Tillman and Thrash and Gage, your cut. Like, he can't do that the very next week. And he's not going to do it, right? As a professional, he's just not going to do it. So we're never going to get to see the lineup that we should see in order to gauge whether or not whoever's that quarterback is our quarterback. And that's such an important component here. If we put Schwartz in and we still go into the draft with maybe Watson, maybe Shador, we're not going to draft somebody this year. Let's see how that's just going to harm him too. And that's the other part of it, which is we just talked about Vrabel in this podcast, but we've often talked about people that left Cleveland, including Baker and other big names that are successful. Part of the reason is they're around other people that help them be successful. They're in systems that allow them to be successful. And that's what I see. I don't see any need to change the defensive system. No indicator since the moment Schwartz got here until now, but every indicator that special teams and offense have to be changed. Every single one. So those would be the first two. Schwartz, OC, and even if it's Reese, he has to be willing to make some substantial changes. We got to get the wide receivers coach out of here.
Yeah.
whoever that, I know
Bingo.
it sort of changed, it's switched hands or
Yeah.
whatever. That's just done for. That's awful. We don't have the worst talent. We have near the bottom talent, but we have the worst receiving group for sure. And then after that, I would really look at, should we keep Barry? Personally, I've been against keeping him in the long run. I can understand if the Haslams know that this really was his first draft, unencumbered by Deep Podesta, and that's why he knocked it out of the park. You're going to keep him. But if that's not the case, if Barry was heavily involved in those other drafts, like we all think he was, if Barry was one of the key people to say yes to Watson coming to Cleveland and us trading away 3 years worth of talent, then he should go too.
Yeah. And again, you're right on. Next year, I do want to see Shador, but if you draft another quarterback, does he stay with Watson still lingering around? Apparently, his window opened up to practice now, so he's going to be there. Maybe I do want to see Watson with some new quarterback. I don't know. At this point, I'm open to all options because I've seen 10 quarterbacks go into the system and come out the same way. No improvements. It looks like you're just putting one machine, like one replacement into another, and you press the button and same output comes in. It's like no matter what command you put, same output comes in. So why not change the system a little bit and see if you put the same command and what you get out, right? You may get something better, you may not. At least it's a controlled experiment. But you're not changing everything. Yeah, you change a quarterback multiple times. It's running a proper DOE. You change multiple times the quarterback and you got the same results. Why not change the system, the coach, and then keep the quarterback and see what you get? And you have an $80 million hit next year. Take it with Deshaun Watson and Shador. Draft offensive guards, wide receivers, offensive guard from top to bottom. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
You nail that. Even Shador doesn't work, and you have to fire the coach, and Watson is almost done. Then you can go into with a new coach, new quarterback who has offensive line ready for him, who has defense ready for him, who has wide receivers ready for him, playmakers, because we already have Fanning as well as Njoku, at least some sort of run game. Actually, not some really good run game, but what's his name, Judkins and Dylan Sampson. You have playmakers then. Now you put the missing piece at the end with a new coach as a quarterback and the coach combo. Maybe you hit the home run. And you have seen with Vrabel, you have seen with Johnson and Bears. It is doable, but it's just a matter of doing it right rather than repeating the same mistakes over and over again and losing candidates and putting plethora of quarterbacks in your system who you're paying all year and you have no idea who you're going to start because they don't have weapons, they don't have protection, they don't have a system. So that's what I would do. But again, with Browns, simple is the hardest thing ever.
Schwartz has never been known. He's not an offensive guy, first of all, but he's also not a quarterback developer. And we've seen, look again, even we haven't talked about the Bears much this year, but look at what happened over there. When they put somebody over there that knows how to talk to quarterbacks, knows how to set up a quarterback for success. Think about how hard that personality type is. It's night and day. Last year and this year, Caleb Williams, two different quarterbacks. And none of the talent really changed, right? He already had all of that talent. I even think of a guy like Marcus Freeman. If Freeman were to get fired from Notre Dame for any reason, let's say they don't make the playoffs or whatever, you could tell players coach, quarterbacks guy, one of those people that is young and enthusiastic and can grow into a head coach in the long run. I mean, maybe he doesn't want a coordinator job in the NFL. I could see that, but why not? Why not take a shot? Put him with Schwartz. Let Schwartz run the defense and let him run the offense.
Again, I don't want to bring this up, but why not ask? Why not Brian Dibble? He was pretty legit with Josh Allen. You put him as an offensive coordinator, Schwartz.
He was doing good with Dart.
Both are experienced head coaches who know how to handle a team. So that pair could be worth giving it a shot. But anyways, not for us to decide as the Browns, and we can only hope. And for this episode, we're signing out.